and welcome to Redheads on Romance, the podcast where Lily, that's me, and Holly,
that's me,
review romance novels and Hallmark movies for our own entertainment and hopefully yours too. So join us for a slightly snarky look at the spicy and sentimental side of Happily Ever After. Let's dive in.
Welcome, welcome. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to talk about, instead of a particular book or movie, we are going to talk about the romance genre in general, I guess mostly pertaining to books. We both like to read, so this is sort of, for me, a very new genre. And I don't know, how long would you say you've been in this genre, Lily?
Oh my gosh, probably at least since 2012, I think I can remember at least, but it's probably longer than that.
And we should say romance genre is defined, as far as I'm aware, the one similarity is a happily ever after. It's two characters or more find through trials and tribulations, conflict and resolution, their way to each other and live happily ever after. So by that definition, I was not really a reader. I would say I can't even think of anything I ever read that really fit that mold until 2022, which I think I came into this when a lot of people did, which was COVID. The genre apparently has experienced quite a boom, really taken off. Kindle Unlimited, indie authors, aka self-published, people have just really absolutely flooded Amazon with every kind of anything that fits that description. It could be, male, female, reverse harem, anything you can think of. Dark romance, sweet romance, open door, closed door. So something kind of for everyone.
One of the things I wanted to say as far as the interest in romance, I think there's a huge group of people on like fan fiction that this is like a huge thing. Like 50 Shades of Grey, that actually started from, I think, Twilight fan fiction. So it's crazy. People would write their fan fiction with romance and then it would grow into this big thing. They'd get a bunch of followers and then they'd publish these books. So that's also kind of, I think, caused this boom in this genre.
That reminds me of something. I did read the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. And when did that come out? I don't know. It was before COVID for sure. Just because it was so on the radar of everybody was talking about it. And it definitely fits that genre.
Okay. 50 Shades of Grey was originally published on June 20th, 2011.
That is shocking. I don't remember it being that long ago. I feel like I read it later than that, but yeah, so I read, but it was before the movie came out, which was 2015, so the first movie, so somewhere in there I did read that. I liked it. I don't have any particular interest in BDSM, but for whatever reason I thought it was very page turny, very addictive, even though everyone said it was badly written. I did not think that.
Very badly written.
She thinks that. So apparently we're going to fight. No, I read it. I might have even read it twice. I don't know. The movies, wasn't like a huge fan. I don't think I ever made it to the third one, but the third book was boring anyway. But yeah, so it, I think it kind of had its moment, really first coming to the big spotlight. And then I think COVID, like I said, is sort of when I discovered it, mostly because Lily here told me about The Hating Game, I think was one of the first books, but just in general, she said something like, oh yeah, I read romance. You should try this. You should try it. And so it had never even occurred to me. And I just decided I needed something in my life that was the book equivalent of McDonald's hamburgers and piles of candy. And that's how I truly feel about this genre. You get no nutritional sustenance really out of it. It's not like reading a book about history and nonfiction and
I don't know. Okay, I think it also depends what romances you read, because I think, especially with the self-publishing on like Kindle Unlimited, you can read some pretty trashy romance books fairly quickly in a whole series, and it can vary from quality. But I think there are some romances out there that are well written, have some historical research, make it really interesting, and really descriptive, pretty writing. So yes, they're not the most deep literature out there, I suppose, but I found some good ones that aren't just like that candy hit, but a lot of them are. I'll agree to that.
And I guess it just depends what you want to get out of your reading. Like as a kid, I'm an only child. I read so much. I read all the Sweet Valley Twins, Sweet Valley High, Babysitter's Club, Saddle Club, Black Stallion, Misty of Chincoteague, and all of Marguerite Henry. So I read like everything, like just my shelves were overflowing with books. So I was a big reader. And then sort of between college, starting a job, like I absolutely stopped reading completely. Like I might pick up a nonfiction and take a year to read it. But it was always a part of me, and I sort of missed that hobby of reading because it really is kind of escapism if you read fiction, especially. And like my mom, her whole life, she read murder mysteries, murder mystery. Like she would.
My mom too.
Here, you need to read this. And I'm like, Mom, all of these books, you have like thousands of them on your shelf, are the same thing. It's like somebody gets murdered. Who did it? Like it just wasn't for me. So I never quite found my way in fiction. I read a few like that. Oh, what's that called? Shopaholic. I don't know if there was that movie with, is it Amy Adams or Isla Fisher? I get them confused, but they have all the Shopaholic gets married, Shopaholic has a baby, but the first book was really good. And so that kind of fiction, which I think is now officially called chick lit, which sounds terribly patronizing, but so some of those I could, read once in a while. But once I picked up romance and I was just looking for something to read while you're like putting the baby to bed and like nursing the baby and giving the baby the bottle, like it just was something to make the time fly by. And I got through 100 books the first year and 100 books the second year. And I was like, I guess I'm doing this. I guess this is like, I found something. And it's funny because I kind of hate it also. It's like you love to hate it or hate to love it. I don't know which one. But so why don't you tell me what types of books you like and why do you like them?
Sure. So you just triggered my memory for a lot of the books I read when I was pretty young. I was pretty much a nerd. It probably doesn't surprise people who know me in real life. But I think in junior high, I found these books called Mind Warp. They're like, young adult with like a sci-fi bend. These kids had like special powers and they just discovered them when they became like teenagers or something. Anyway, so that was kind of the stuff I read at that point, but I'd occasionally pick up, something I guess, quote unquote, more girly. I remember reading one book. I don't even remember the name, so it's terrible for me to even bring this up. I remember it had a pink cover and it was about a girl and she visited California. She was from out of state. She went to school or something, but I think she kind of fell in love or she made friends kind of thing. And I remember at the end of that book, I felt so moved, like in my soul, I was just like so moved. I felt uncomfortable. And I think, reading has that kind of effect on me. So I continued to read a lot, discovered Pride and Prejudice in high school. It was one of the books we could choose for like free read. And I loved it. That was, I guess, my first real romance book that I didn't know was romance at the time. And after that, every now and then I'd pick up a young adult book and maybe it's my upbringing, but I was shocked to find how much sex was in them. So parents out there, in case you didn't know, you could go right into the young adult section and there's some spicy stuff in some of those books, but it was about different coming of age themes and, it was a small part of the book about sex, I guess, but yeah. And then as I got older, I try to read classics that I probably should have read when I was younger. I read like Frankenstein and Dorian Gray and things like that. Particularly after I had my son. It was during the pandemic, and I would just stay up for what we call the night shift because me and my husband were exhausted, and I'd stay up and I'd read. So I'd catch up on classics or something new on Kindle, and that's kind of where I was at until I got back into romances kind of recently.
So a thing that links, like we said, each romance novel to make them a romance novel is the happily ever after ending. Do you love it or do you loathe it?
All right. So I love it. There's a few reasons for that. One, I mean, happily ever after feels good. It's a happy thing. But two, I don't know. I've always struggled watching and reading, consuming any kind of media where, you know, it's adrenaline-y, it's scary, or something terrible happens. And I feel things too much, and I don't enjoy that. What I love about romances is, you know, at the end of the day, at least the ones I read, that everyone's going to be happy. They're going to be together. They're going to have some sort of happily ever after. So I appreciate that predictable nature of it. Another thing I like about it is that falling in love feeling. You know, in real life, you're only going to get that a few times in your life as you meet people throughout your life and you connect with them and you fall in love. And there's something about falling in love that's so exciting. It's still perfect and wonderful when you stay in love, I should know, being happily married now. But there's something about witnessing that falling in love and the excitement that comes along with it and seeing how it happened.
Disagree. So I'm kind of the opposite. I kind of hate the happily ever after ending because it is predictable. It is coming no matter what, it's coming. And so it's kind of like too safe, too predictable, but it is what links the genre. And there's not, I mean, if it didn't have that, it would just be called romantic fiction or, you know, spicy fiction, which is certainly a thing, but it's just not as easily categorized. But then, you know, in the midst of the romance journey, I did read a book that was, I guess you could say, like, modern day romantic fiction that did not it was very much written exactly like a romance with, you know, plot, spicy theme, and then the end, and they did not get together. And I was like, whoa, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Like, I don't care. And then I kept being like, but I kind of care. Like, they should have like cracked them. And it was The Idea of You, which was just made into a movie that I think is on Prime, with Anne Hathaway. Which is a reverse age gap. She's like 40 and he's like 20, and her daughter goes to a boy band concert and she meets the Harry Styles-esque character and he falls for her. But in the book, it is not happily ever after, HEA for short, those in the know. But then in the movie, they did kind of throw in a little scene at the end to like open the door, like, oh, are they going to get... So I guess they couldn't handle it ending kind of unknown. So yeah, it kind of bugs me. It irks me. I'm not a romantic person, so I don't like the romance. I don't enjoy that falling in love story. It's completely the opposite of you. I like the plots. I like dark romance because, you know, the people are bad and not like sickeningly sweet where I'm just like barfing the whole way through. I hate that. So I feel like we're so completely opposite on what kind of books we like and why we like them. So I think this is probably like good co-hosting yin and yang. But yeah, I thought maybe next we could talk about tropes. Okay, so most romance novels depend on several tropes, which, if you don't know what that is, it is a common or overused theme or device. So, yeah, you might have seen, you know, in movies, there'll be a trope or a, you know, I can't remember if it's like the Lifetime movies was where I first really heard this term trope. And, oh, yeah, that same trope. So romance novels, they're just kind of proud of it. Like the author will list, you know, these are the 8 tropes in this book. And, you know, so you just kind of look through them. Do I like these or not? Like there's an age difference and billionaire and whatever it is. So you kind of see, you know, is this what I'm into? Some people hate this, hate that, love this, love that. So So I just wrote down a laundry list of tropes that I could think of off the top of my head, which is like 50 different ones. So you can add to it if you want, but I think we can just talk about each one and do you like it, do you not like it, kind of define it. So first one is stepbrother. I, for some reason, keep like ending up reading like stepbrother books. I don't even like it, but it's just so common, or maybe I'm in the algorithm for it. How do you feel about stepbrother?
I've never sought out a stepbrother romance, so I can't really say. I don't say it hasn't appealed to me. Again, I want the falling in love and the whole thing and happily ever after, and I don't know how you do that with a stepbrother situation.
And I mean, in theory, they're supposed to be like teenagers when they meet, at least. But then there's been at least one or two where they like grew up together. And no, I'm sorry.
That's weird. That's too weird.
Don't like it. So yeah, I would.
No judging people out there who do like it, but it's not for me. Not for me.
Yeah, we're talking about our personal preferences. No shame, no judgment. Obviously, reading romance, you can judge us all you want because that's what people do. But yeah, I would say not my preferred. Another one kind of in that vein of like weird young people is student professor. Like not usually like a high school teacher. It's usually like a college student and their professor. How do you feel?
I don't really like situations where there's like that almost grooming aspect, because again, it's not really falling in love if it's kind of like a power imbalance. Like maybe if it was a student and a professor who she wasn't actually in his class and they just met on campus, like that would be more believable, but still weird. Not my thing.
Yeah, one of my favorite authors, Ivy Smoke, she does a lot of Kindle Unlimited, and her big series is about a student-professor relationship, and it's like 8 books long, and I love all her other stuff, but I cannot get past like book 2. I'm just not feeling the character, the dynamic, I don't know, like the professor's like 28 or something. He's not that old, but I don't love it. Next one I had was age gap and reverse age gap. And you know me, I love reverse anything. Like it has to be the older woman and the younger man. I hate older man and younger woman. I hate it. So what do you think?
I've never been one for age gaps either. I'm sounding really lame here, but I have my favorites. They're just not any of these. I prefer the characters to be similar in age because I just feel like in real life, that's how I would be interested. Like, I mean, a few years is okay, but definitely not like, 15, 20. That's too much for me.
And Lily probably knows, but I've always preferred younger guys. So, I was 24. I dated an 18-year-old. Like this is just reverse age gap for me all the way. I just prefer that. And the next one I have is forced proximity. And it sounds pretty obvious, but it can cover such a wide range of setups. I think it's a little bit to do with like enemies to lovers, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's basically you get the two characters together in a way that's very intimate and close that they would never have gotten together otherwise. Like, for example, there's only one room available in the hotel and you both have to be here for a wedding or whatever it is. And then, or we can only share this bed, or like it ranges in how believable it is. But I'm actually okay with the forced proximity. It's a good device to get the characters to interact, in my mind.
I agree. I'm a big fan of forced proximity because usually it's, opposites, people that wouldn't have had like insta connection otherwise, which kind of, but they're forced to be together and there's friction because it's like there has to be sort of that I think to me it kind of interlaces with enemies to lovers. I guess it doesn't have to, but I prefer it that way. Workplace.
I'm all about the workplace. I met my husband at work. I don't know. What I like about the workplace is it almost gives an element of taboo because you guys do work together. And you hear all the time, like, no, don't shit where you eat. Part of my language. But I don't know. I like that because it's two people who have to interact on a regular basis, maybe in a professional way, a closed off, distant way. But underneath, they actually are really into each other or something. And I like to discover how those characters get together.
Yeah, I agree. Workplace, I think actually haven't really read any other than the Hating Game now that I think about it, which is weird because work is where I met like so many people I dated. It's just like a natural place to meet people and kind of, you're not at a bar, everyone's not drunk, like, you know, apps, heaven forbid, I'm way older than apps, but, you know, everyone's misrepresenting themselves. It's like you see real people.
Yeah, I actually think part of the attraction for me about it is you see people in kind of their work element, which, you know, if they're really smart or really good at what they do, that can be really attractive. So I think that's another element of it that I like, instead of just them bumming it around or being ridiculous somewhere.
Agreed. And I did have enemies to lovers after this. I love it. Can't get enough. They hate each other for like 60% of the book, ideally. And you're just like, oh, but they want each other so bad. The more like you believe the hate, the better. Do you like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Hating Game, it's literally in the name, hate, right? But yeah, absolutely. I love that. There's something about two people who think the other person like despises them or something, and it's almost like them winning them over or something. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's silly and primal or something, but I love the enemies to lovers trope.
All right, so we're both fans of that. Fake relationship or fake marriage. I think fake marriage is sort of more common in historical romance, which I don't read very much. Although I have read a number, you know, when you get to 270 or whatever I'm at, you do get to some modern fake marriage books. And I love this. Fake relationship, great. Fake marriage, even better. Like, oh, we have to be together because of whatever, some family problem, inheritance, this and that. I got to get this and that. Like, but the people hate each other. So it kind of goes with enemies to lovers a lot.
You know, I haven't really read a fake marriage one, but fake relationships, absolutely. And I do love those because it's interesting to see how the characters deal with that they have to pretend they're lovey-dovey when they're not, but then they actually kind of are, you know? So I love it.
Because spoiler alert, they're going to fall for each other for real. All right. Next one is Second Chance. Personally, hate it. This is like, we knew each other before and it didn't quite work out. And then a few years go by and you're in my life again. I don't know. I think I just haven't really read very many of them. And there was just one I just DNF'd on so hard that it made me kind of hate and hang up the whole trope forever. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm not big on Second Chance. I think I like two new people who don't know each other and have misconceptions about each other or whatever, falling in love. So people who knew each other, and even if they're older and different, I just don't really get the appeal. Like, it almost feels like you're getting into seeing a relationship that was already developed off book or off screen, and it's harder to want to get involved in that because you've already missed a huge chunk of it.
That's kind of making me think of Secret Baby. Apparently this is a big trope. I didn't even really know about it. And then it kind of got thrown in a book I was reading at the end and I didn't see it coming. And I don't know. I guess it can be whenever I read it in the description, like, oh, she comes to find him, but this time she's got a baby in tow. And I just nothing about it, like having recently raised a young baby. Maybe it's too much realism to be messing up the romance, which is pure escapism for me. I only want to escape. I don't want to read about like your baby. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, agreed. I don't have any interest in that. I mean, I also don't like the ones that end with like, oh, they're having a baby. Like even just a normal romance that tell you, because I don't know. I'm glad they're having their happily ever after, but I could just imagine their happily ever after. I don't need to know they had their baby with a weird name. And I don't know. It kind of I'm reading it for the falling in love part. I don't I lived the other happy parts. I don't need to see that happen.
I have a whole other rant about babies and epilogues. Maybe we can talk about epilogues another time. I'm not ready to go there right now. Okay. Next up, let's do my favorite. Reverse harem, more commonly or modernly, I should say, now being called Why Choose. I told you, reverse anything. I'm a fan. I want the woman to be in power. I want her to have...
Can you explain reverse harem?
Okay. Yes. So this is where one female main character, only one, has more than one man be committed to her. So the guys cannot be dating anyone else, sleeping with anyone else, married to anyone else. They are all only for her. I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of jealousy. Sometimes there's a little bit of dominance, but in general, it just always seems to like work so well and everything just flows so naturally. And that's what's unrealistic to me. It's just completely not real, but I don't know. I guess I just like the setup of it. So, I mean, nowadays, like I said, it's usually called Why Choose, because harem, you're just thinking of people in like Arabian Nights costumes, like laying on couches or something, which is definitely not what it's about. But yeah, so the circumstances that bring this about are often like... the guys are all in the same motorcycle club, the same mafia, the same high school, the same whatever. They're friends, they're brothers, they're cousins. They usually have a connection to each other, although occasionally there'll be just random guys like dropping out of the sky into the harem. But usually they have some pre-existing friendship or whatever, where like I guess that seems more believable for them to share a woman. Have you read any of these?
No, and actually I was asking Holly for recommendations because she loves this trope, and I feel like I should at least give it a chance. But when I read all the ones that are out there, like the descriptions, it's all like the mafia, motorcycle game, sports, like all these things that I'm just not interested in. Like if you have a bunch of guys who like maybe fall in love with her, maybe, but I don't know, these situations, like a motorcycle gang, that's not sexy to me. I don't know. I don't want that. I'm not interested in that. So,
yeah, I don't know what it, like I said, I think it's something female empowering about it to me. And it's just totally not believable. I mean, no girl is going to have 5 guys like that all are just living for her for the rest of their life. It's just not believable, but that is not why we read romance. So I feel like that's very like fantasy element. It's not like realistic in your real life that is something that you want or could achieve. So I think just reading about it is, I don't know, it's different. It's not like your usual barfy happily ever after to me. So it's a little more interesting. It's usually a little more, I guess, taboo. You know, you can only imagine some of the scenes that might unfold in these situations, which kind of leads me into the next one. Mafia. Like, I don't go out of my way to find this, but it's just so everywhere on Kindle that I have read a number of Mafia books. It just seems like, do we really have the Mafia anymore? Is this a thing that's happening? Is it in New York? Is it in these big cities, Boston, wherever these take place? I don't know. I don't like it, but I read it.
I've never read a Mafia one. I have no desire to read a Mafia one, but like Holly said, it's all over like Kindle Unlimited, that and like sports ones, but like it's not really something I would be interested in. Again, like kind of happily ever after. Not that I guess there couldn't be a happily ever after in the Mafia, but I don't think that's the feel of those books typically.
Yeah, and it's kind of got two that I can think of off the top of my head. There's either the Mafia Princess, which is the big Don, his daughter is, you know, his little princess that he's trying to protect, and she gets corrupted by some guy in the Mafia that she's not supposed to be dating. Or it's someone gets kidnapped by the Mafia as like a prisoner for their bad acting person that's in trouble with the mob, and she falls for her captors. And I don't know. It just depends how it's written. I don't like it generally, but sometimes it could be like a dark romance that's written interestingly, and they tend to have a little bit more of a plot as far as like suspense and intrigue and edge of your seat and, daring escapes and guns and is this gonna blah. So it just kind of depends if you like that type of plot. So it looks like we have a lot left to go and we're out of time. So we're going to make this a 2-parter. But thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to further this discussion on tropes and romance.
See you next time.